I am Victoria Harper, and my story begins in Mill Creek, Ohio, a town so small you'd miss it if you sneezed driving through. Our family's diner, Harper's Home Plate, was the pulse of the place, its neon sign flickering like a heartbeat. The smell of sizzling bacon and strong coffee was my childhood, but so was watching Mum and Dad pour their souls into keeping the place afloat. Mum's smile never wavered, even when creditors called, and Dad's calloused hands scrubbed pots with a quiet pride. They gave everything for me. At 16, I knew college wasn't my road, not because I didn't dream of it, but because I saw the exhaustion in Mum's eyes, the way Dad's shoulders slumped over unpaid bills. I wanted to give them a break, a chance to breathe. So, I started learning French, huddled over a laptop in the diner's back booth, taking free online courses to chat with the rare tourists who'd stopped by, drawn by the charm of small-town America. Their tales of Paris and Provence sparked something in me, a fire to build a life where my parents wouldn't have to worry. By 20, I was working for a travel agency, planning tours for French-speaking clients, each deal a step toward my promise to lift my family up. I never imagined that path would lead me to a Chicago hotel, a love that felt like fate, and a family that'd test everything I thought I was worth. By 28, I was in Chicago, orchestrating a conference for French tourists at the Grand Lake Hotel. The place was a world away from Mill Creek, gleaming marble, chandeliers that screamed money. My job was to make sure every flight, itinerary, and translator clicked into place. I'd steal moments in the hotel lounge, sipping overpriced cappuccinos, when I met Daniel Carter. Daniel, 30, was a concierge with a smile that could melt ice and a quiet burden in his gaze. He'd charm French guests with flawless phrases, making the room feel alive. One afternoon, he slid a coffee my way, grinning. "Pour la femme qui fait tourner cet endroit," he said, winking. I laughed, caught off guard, and we started talking, about the guests, then about life. He loved hearing about the diner, and I was hooked on his warmth, the way he seemed to carry everyone's weight effortlessly. We connected over French, trading idioms and chuckling over my Ohio accent tripping over Raz. He opened up about his dad, gone since he was a teen, leaving him and his mom, Amanda, to hold each other up. I heard the guilt in his voice, the need to keep her happy. I shared my drive to give my parents a better life, and it felt like we were cut from the same cloth. Months later, we were head over heels, dreaming of a future together. But when Daniel asked me to move into his family's home in the Chicago suburbs, a tiny knot formed in my gut. I ignored it, telling myself love would iron out the wrinkles. Moving into Daniel's family home felt like stepping onto a stage where I didn't know my lines. The house, a sprawling suburban relic in Oak Park, screamed old money. Faded velvet curtains, crystal decanters gathering dust. Amanda Carter, Daniel's mum, greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. At 62, she carried herself like a queen who'd lost her crown but refused to admit it. Her husband's death had drained their wealth, and the cracks in her pride showed in the way she clung to appearances. The first time I met her, before the wedding, she'd asked, "Which college did you attend, Victoria?" Her voice was syrupy, but her eyes sharpened when I said, "I didn't. I started working after high school." The silence that followed felt like a judgment handed down from a high court. She murmured, "Oh, how practical," and changed the subject. I told myself it was a one-off, that she'd warm up once we were family, but living with her was like walking on eggshells. She'd drift through the house in silk robes, reminiscing about gala dinners while I worked remotely on my travel app, trying to turn my agency experience into something bigger. Daniel was gone most days, his concierge shift stretching late. I'd hoped sharing a home would knit us together, but Amanda's cold glances made it clear I was an outsider. She'd interrupt my work to point out a smudge on a window or a dish out of place, her tone implying I was failing some unspoken test. I kept quiet, telling myself I was doing this for Daniel, for us. But deep down, I wondered how long I could keep swallowing my pride. Amanda's demands piled up like dishes in the sink. "Victoria, the guest room needs vacuuming by noon," she'd say, her voice sharp as she sipped tea in the living room, flipping through magazines. I'd nod, biting back frustration, and pause my work on the travel app, my dream project connecting tourists with local guides worldwide. I'd built it from scratch, coding late into the night, but Amanda acted like I was just messing around online. She'd dictate dinner menus, nothing spicy, nothing ethnic, and send me to the store for specific brands, even if it meant driving across town. Once I spent an hour hunting for her favourite organic butter, only to find her lounging when I got back, critiquing the way I folded napkins. "You're home all day, dear. It's not too much to ask, is it?" she'd say, her smile thin as a blade. I wanted to scream that I was running a business, not playing housewife, but I held back, hoping she'd see my effort. Daniel was my anchor, but even he started to drift. When I mentioned Amanda's endless chores, he'd laugh it off. "Mum's just particular, Victoria? She means well?" I'd search his face for the man who'd promised to have my back, but he'd changed the subject, talking about his long shifts or his mum's fragile health. I'd lie awake at night, the weight of the house pressing in, wondering if I was invisible to the man I loved. My app was gaining traction, beta users raving, investors circling, but at home, I felt like I was disappearing. I tried talking to Daniel about Amanda's hostility, pouring my heart out one night after she'd scolded me for a dusty bookshelf I'd cleaned that morning. "She treats me like a maid, Dan," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm working my tail off and she acts like I'm nothing." He leaned back, rubbing his temples. "Victoria, Mum's been through a lot. Losing Dad, the money. She's not herself. Can you try to get along?" His words stung like I was the problem, not the woman tearing me down daily. I clung to the hope that time would soften Amanda, but it only got worse. She'd interrupt my calls with investors, demanding I scrub the bathtub properly or fetch her dry cleaning. I'd smile through gritted teeth, thinking of my parents' diner, how they taught me to keep going no matter what. But my patience was fraying, my app was close to launching, and I needed focus, not another lecture on how to chop carrots the right way. The breaking point loomed when Amanda started dropping hints about my place in the family. "Daniel deserves someone who elevates him," she'd say, her eyes flicking over me like I was a stain on her perfect past. I'd catch Daniel's gaze, hoping he'd step in, but he'd just look away, torn between us. I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, not just with Amanda, but with the man I thought I'd spend my life with. My heart ached, but a spark of defiance grew. Maybe I didn't belong here, but I wasn't going to let them define me. One evening, Amanda breezed into the kitchen, her silk scarf fluttering like she was still the socialite she used to be. "Victoria, I'm off to Europe in a few months," she announced, not looking at me. "You'll keep the house spotless while we're gone, won't you?" The "we" hung heavy. Her and Daniel, no mention of me. My stomach twisted. Was I really just the housekeeper to her? I confronted Daniel that night, my voice low to keep from shaking. "Your mum's planning a trip and leaving me behind. Did you know?" He blinked, confused. "What?" "No, Victoria, you're coming. I told her we'd all go." His words should have soothed me, but the idea of a vacation with Amanda's sneers felt like a punishment. "I'm not going, Dan," I said, my throat tight. "I can't keep pretending this is okay." He exploded, his face red. "You're being ridiculous. This is a chance to see the world and you're throwing a tantrum. Mum's not perfect, but you're making this harder than it needs to be." His words hit like a slap. I'd poured everything into this family, and he couldn't see how his mother was grinding me down. Tears stung my eyes, but I held them back. I'm not the one making it hard, I whispered, walking away. That night, I lay awake, the future I'd imagined with Daniel crumbling. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on, or what it would take to make him see the truth. The next morning, we sat at the breakfast table, the air thick with tension. Amanda buttered her toast, humming, while Daniel scrolled his phone, avoiding my eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. Amanda, I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. You're trying to cut me out of this trip, aren't you? She froze, her knife clattering. Don't be dramatic, Victoria. If you want to come, come. But honestly, would you even appreciate it? Her tone dripped with condescension. Before I could respond, she leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You're just a high school dropout who sits on her laptop all day. You don't belong on a trip like this. You're dragging Daniel down, leeching off his hard work. My heart stopped. I told her about my app, my clients, my dreams. I'm not unemployed, I said, voice shaking. I've been building a business, paying for this house, your groceries, your utilities. She laughed, sharp and cruel. A business? Please, you're playing games online. Daniel's the one keeping us afloat. I looked at him, begging for backup, but he sighed, exasperated. Victoria, just apologise, you're making a scene. That was it. The man I loved, the life I'd built. It all shattered. You want me gone? I said, standing. Fine, I'm done. Amanda smirked, thinking she'd won. I packed a bag, my hands trembling with rage and hurt, and walked out, their silence echoing behind me. I didn't know where I'd go, but I knew one thing. I was done letting them erase me. I settled into a cramped Chicago apartment, the kind with squeaky floors and a view of nothing but brick. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and that felt like liberation. I dove into my travel app, coding through the night, fueled by black coffee and a need to prove Amanda wrong. Every line I wrote was a brick in the wall between me and the life I'd left. The app launched and took off like a rocket. French tourists loved the seamless bookings, local guides loved the gigs, and investors loved the profits. By my 29th birthday, I'd built a $20 million empire, with clients from Paris to Montreal. I bought a house on California's coast, the ocean air washing away Oak Park's heaviness. I reconnected with Sophia Dubois, my childhood friend from Mill Creek, who'd moved from Provence, France as a kid. She was now a marketing exec in San Diego, and over glasses of rosé we laughed about our days sneaking pastries at the diner, dreaming bigger than our small town. The sting of Daniel's betrayal lingered, but it was fading. My parents called daily, proud but nagging me to slow down. You've done enough, Victoria, Mum would say. But I wasn't finished. I wanted them to see the world they'd inspired me to chase. France, maybe, where my love for their language began. I was building something real, and no one could take that away. 3 months after I walked out, my phone buzzed. An Illinois number. Amanda's voice, usually dripping with superiority, was frantic. Victoria F., we're drowning in bills. Collection letters, utilities. What's happening? I leaned back on my California patio, the Pacific sparkling. You didn't know. I paid for everything, your lights, your groceries, your life. Silence. Then, why didn't you say? I thought Daniel... I let out a sharp laugh. Daniel's concierge job barely covers his coffee. You two burned through his dad's savings, didn't you? She admitted they'd racked up $500,000 in debt. Credit cards, luxury vacations, designer bags. They'd banked on Daniel's fancy job or my little hobby to save them. Now they were sunk. Daniel snatched the phone. Victoria, you're my wife. You owe us. The audacity burned. I'm not your wife, I shot back. You chose your mum when she called me a leech. I paused, steadying myself. Want help? Get jobs? Pay your debts. I did it. You can too. Amanda pleaded, but I stood firm. You told me to leave, remember? Enjoy your classy life. I hung up, my pulse racing, but my resolve solid. They'd made their bed. I wasn't tucking them in. I stood on my California porch, divorce papers signed, Daniel a shadow of the past. He looked worn when we finalized it, mumbling about his mum's spending and his own mistakes. I didn't rub it in. Their fall wasn't my joy, just my freedom. I'd told them to work hard, ditch the luxury, start small. They'd rolled their eyes, but word was Daniel was pulling double shifts, Amanda selling her pearls. Their lesson, not my victory. My victory was this: a sun-drenched home where my parents now lived, their laughter echoing through rooms I'd only dreamed of. I'd flown them from Ohio, watching Mum gasp at the Pacific, Dad snapping photos of every wave. Sophia Dubois, my friend from Provence days in Mill Creek, came over often, her parents joining for barbecues, our stories of struggle and success weaving us tight. My app was soaring, linking travellers from Bordeaux to Quebec, and I was dreaming bigger, a foundation to help kids like me chase their spark, maybe even in France. I'd learned my worth wasn't in Amanda's approval or Daniel's promises. It was in late nights coding, diner shifts with my parents, French phrases that opened my world. I'd built this life, and it was mine to hold. To everyone who's walked this road with me, thank you. You've shared my pain, my fight, and my rise. If my story stirred you, hit subscribe and join us, where every dream chased is a tale of grit, heart, and new dawns. Keep carving your path, and I'll meet you where the horizon glows.